Christian Farmer, Strategic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, August 5th. I have up on the screen here some of the after hours movers. I don't know. I feel like this is a little bit different than some of the other earnings seasons. It just feels like there's a lot of big movers, both on the upside and the downside. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way about that too. It just seems like names are really making some big moves, and I think it also is a combination too of maybe just tracking more names too than usual, but. This is just, anything with a market cap over 500 million. So this includes small caps, but you could see right now you've got in the after hours, you have 45 names that are up at least 2%. That's a lot. And what's interesting about this too is it's just like I've been saying this the last like few of these videos. Please make sure that you're looking at both sides, because it's not just one or the other. It's not just like, oh, there's a whole bunch of names going up or a whole name's going down. And one of the things I've said too is be careful who you're following or you're listening to on social media, because you could create a lot of stories about and make up a lot of narratives about one way or the other. Oh my God, there's so many names. Look at what SMCI did. Look at what Open did. Look at what Snap did, and you could make it sound like you could come up with a story and make it sound really bad in terms of the price action if you're not looking at both things. So you also have here like 45 companies, saying like just about the same amount that are up that are down. There's at least 45 companies here that are down at least 2.6%. From in the after hours. To me, again, it's a little bit more unusual. I'm going to just change this for you to just large cap names, and this will get a little bit more simpler. Now, when you look at just names over $5 billion, there's what you got about 14 names that are up at least 2%. And on the downside, you've got a bit more to the downside. You've got about 24 names that are leaning to the downside, down at least over 2%. So that's a little bit more skewed, and we have been seeing that too. I think that there's been a little bit more names that are going down just the last couple days. But what I tend to do is I put together every day. I'm putting together, or I'm adding to my list of earnings strength and gap names, and it seems like I'm adding about 4 or 5 names a day. So, for example, like let's go back to that's the after hours. Let's look at the regular market, and here you go. Like, look at how many names are down. Let's say at least like 7%. And not all of these, by the way, are earnings, so it's tough. But GFS is one of them. That's Global Foundries. Zebra was down. TTG, which is an aerospace name. HIMS was down 12%. Shift for 4 was down. VRTX, KDIT, BRBR got really slammed. Stock was down 32%. That stock was doing very well for a while. It's a maker of like protein shakes, and I think it's Power Bar as well. So how many names did I say? I just, as you can tell, it has felt like it's a long day. So that's about, if we just take the names that were down over 7%, that's about 19 names. The names that were up less today, so you still had a good amount of them. 11 names over over 7%. So this is a weird way to look at market breadth, but it is what it is. And the names that had good, strong earnings, again, it's not all of these names aren't just the ones that had earnings, but BWXT had a great quarter, up 18%. Really nice there. AXON. I know that's a name that David Portnoy likes a lot, so I think he's very pleased about that. Up 16%. Lattice Semi was up 15%. SYM was just up because, for whatever reason, it had a nice little setup there. OKLO, again, not earnings related. STRL was up. MDGL. Palantir, of course, which most probably had the most eyes on it. But again, you can paint a picture based and say, oh, geez, look at what Palantir did and look at what BWX did. But again, that's not the whole story that's going on here. And I'm going to get to the price action in just a second in the indices, but I think it's just very interesting right now to kind of go through and just as we just did and say, okay, these are the names that are moving to the downside, and these are the names to be moving to the upside. So let me stop the screen share. Already having a difficult time speaking. Just because I think at this point in earnings season, there's just so much information coming at you, and like I said, I think that there's more names that are moving in bigger movements up and down. Very interesting day that we had on our hands today. And again, the main theme, well, one of the themes I would say for the day, and you're probably hearing this if you're engaged in the financial markets right now, you're probably been hearing this quite a bit on social media or on financial media like CNBC about the seasonality, that it's not good in August. August is a tough time, right? I tend to, whenever I hear when everybody's talking about a subject like this, sometimes I think, oh, that's not going to work. If usually when things really work is when people don't talk about something and something exists. When everybody's talking about weak seasonality, sometimes the market likes to fool as many people as possible, or the most amount of people at all times. So it's just something that's also something that I keep in the back of my mind. But I would say I would say that I do believe that weak seasonality right now, and I also think with until we get further out of earning season this week, we've got a lot of these growth names reporting, but I think the market kind of needs to get a feel for that, and some of the reactions and some of the bigger names like Microsoft, and again, a lot of big moves going into these earnings season, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with some digestion. I'm going to go over the Microsoft chart in a minute because I think there's something to be taken away from Microsoft. And so what I find, so that's one theme that I mentioned about what's going on with earnings season. Another theme that's very interesting is what's going on with the gold miners. Gold miners led again today, up 2.8% today. Uranium names were also strong today. What was weak? It seemed like tech was pretty weak today, and tech seems like it's kind of has lost its luster for now. I've been noticing some declining breadth in tech today, and I'll show you that chart as well. So that's enough things I think to kind of to go on it. I didn't mention the ISM numbers, but I thought that that could potentially shake up this market today. That the ISM Services number, that's a number that number one, it's a forward-looking indicator. It's a leading indicator, and we are more of a service economy, and we've been that way for a number of years. So that's why that's a bit more impactful than the ISM Manufacturing Survey, which came in a little bit lighter than expected. Here, I'll bring up this screen next, and then we'll go to the chart. So let me stop share screening, share and window, and there we go. So this is the ISM number coming in a little bit less than expected. So we're starting to see some. We don't have that many data points. We have the jobs report from last Friday that showed weakening. We have this ISM number that looks to be weakening as well. I get it that the S&P global numbers were okay. But I've always relied on the ISM numbers more than the S&P. And I think if you want to break this down and look at this chart, which I think that you can see this, but you could see that there's been a loss of, speaking of momentum, to the downside, right? This looks like the trend looks like it's moving down here in the ISM numbers. So I go back to what I've been talking to, and then I promise I'll get to the charts. But I've been saying that you cannot keep interest rates up here and think that it's not going to have an effect. Again, please don't get fixated on just plus or minus. Like, you have to look at what the prevailing rate is. It's 4.5%. This rate is tightening, right? Anytime, like if we were at a 2% rate, then I would say, okay, you probably don't have to cut interest rates. but we're not at 2%. We're at 4.5%. And I think that gets lost. I know I've covered this subject multiple times, but put things in perspective. The interest rates are not at 1% or 2% or even 2.5%, which is more of like a normal rate. You're at 4.5%, right? And they're not going to cut. And now the market is finally pricing in a cut for September. But I'm telling you, you keep this rate up here at 4.5%, it's going to cause a recession. So I'm not an economist. This is just something that I've brought up a few times because I've seen this before in my trading career where the Fed just took too long to cut. And, and again, here, sorry, I said I wouldn't dwell on this, but it's tough not to. I get caught up in this stuff especially when you look over time the last 30 years and say, sorry, let's look at the last 30 years, right? Every time that this has happened where they've kept rates around this high before, it is not ended well for the US economy. And then they have to come in crashing and saying, "Oh my God, we got to cut rates now and now and now," right? Like they've like they've done in here before because they basically caused a recession keeping it too high. Again, other factors at play when there's been recessions, but part of the blame is because the Fed has their head up, you know what, and they keep the rate up here, and then they say, "Oh my God, we gotta go and we gotta cut rates." All right, I'll move on from that. Sorry for the tangent, but you got a tangent whether you wanted one or not. Let's go now. Let's go to the charts. Stop screen share. All right, so SPY, very, using the MarketWebs here, right? Very much, if you were using this today, you knew where your resistance was. It was right at 631.73, top of value. We made a nice comeback where we just a couple days, big red flag, broke below the 5-day and 20-day moving average. Yesterday, you reclaim it. However, we got stuffed. Like if you think of like the Matumbo commercial where he's shaking his finger, right? You got rejected right at the top of the value where we know that there's resistance using volume at price. Also a little bit tricky here when you look at the 1-hour chart too, right? We made it into the value area for the week, right? And I was watching this barrier yesterday. We broke in and then we slid right back out. So we kind of gave back here. We had a nice oversold bounce. Remember what I talked about in yesterday's video that the NAMO got oversold. The Nasdaq McClellan oscillator got to as oversold levels as what we actually saw in April. Okay, so we got a hell of a bounce on that yesterday. Now the question is, are we going to have follow through? And that is a bit tough. Going back to August seasonality, probably a lot of people are taking vacation, and they're probably like, if you think about an institution, right? And some of like a hedge fund manager who's maybe made some money the last couple months, right? And they're probably like, you know what? I'm going to take off a couple weeks. I'm going to go to the beach, or I'm going to go up to one of the lakes in the Adirondacks, and I'm going to relax a little bit. Maybe let prices come in a little bit. That could be a thinking. And hey, I'm gonna watch earnings, and I'm gonna see what I want to buy, right? And be picky and choosy, right? With some of these earnings reports that did well, and also some of the ones that didn't do well. Maybe they're trying to avoid some of those or hedging those moves. Q, same thing. Really nice bounce, really nice move yesterday, right into that resistance, 566.42. Right, that is the top of the value area. Again, that is based on all the price activity from the month of July, and rejected there. When we look at the 1-hour chart too, right, this did not hold up well. Try to get into the value area, and then right around this 10 o'clock time frame when the ISM numbers came back out, it's a rejection, right? So if you want something to blame for this, you can, but you'll find it in the price action. So first of all, the market already started to come down. This was last Thursday before the jobs data, and that just kind of kept it in the moving down. So more weak economics, and nobody's cutting interest rates right now. So it's okay when things are moving up and when you have a strong economy, but when you start to lose momentum, right, it's kind of it's a red flag that you have right now. All right. You have nobody right now. Well, maybe more fiscally they are stimulating with trying to cut taxes and things like that. But in any event, here's IWM. Which one thing I will say, I was surprised at what IWM did today. IWM was up a 0.5% today. So there was no rejection here, but I would be watching tomorrow, this move up. And a lot of times what you'll see for, and how you can use the value areas to trade is basically say, hey, here's your breakdown, here's your retest. And if it fails and it breaks back below 220, 225, then I think IWM is a short. All right. I wanted to talk about the move of the day. Everybody excited for this? The gold miners, right? The gold miners breaking out. Really interesting to see this. This is a heck of a move in the last 2 days. GDX was up 2.8% today. I think it was up 4.5%, around 4.5% yesterday. So I'm not chasing this move, but man, that's up over 7% in 2 days, and that's a really nice breakout of this sideways pattern here. What's really interesting is gold is not doing anything. Gold, as far as breaking out, it is above the short-term moving averages, but it's really locked in a sideways move. Some people think that the miners tend to lead moves. We didn't see that on the first time that gold really started to go up, right? The actual metal led the move, and you could look at this if you don't believe me, right? So you go back to when did we really take this leg up here, right? This was this was January. So if you go GDX, GDX over GLD, right? Well, I mean, I guess it did. I guess it did just maybe I kind of didn't think it was doing the same thing, but there has been good outperformance here, GDX over GLD. So I strike that. Go since the beginning of this year, right in here, GDX did outperform GLD. So I've got GDX in the numerator, GLD in the denominator, right? And here's the big breakout. Now the miners are really outperforming and breaking out of this. Let's look at the weekly chart here in this too. And that's what that relationship looks like. So you're getting a big kick up here in the gold miners. So at this point, like personally for me, considering that this is now a theme, this move here after a couple months of 2 months of consolidation is just to basically look for maybe a shallow dip here, and maybe that's where I would get involved in like an EGO or something like that. That's a nice looking chart. And nice breakout here. This is Eldorado Gold Corporation. I mentioned that I would talk about a little bit about NVIDIA and Microsoft. I was listening to Jay Woods on CNBC, and he did a very good job explaining this. So what happened here in Microsoft? And Microsoft rallied, and again, this is why I did not play Microsoft for earnings, is because it made a 30% advance. But that's a huge move for Microsoft from back in April to the right before it reported earnings. So this, I don't want to say it's a blow off top because it's still holding the 5-day moving average. And I was looking at this today as possibly a buy the, I don't want to say buy the dip, but or if it even comes into this top of the value area, which is 515, right? I might be a buyer in here, but it might be a little bit too soon. It's not, it may needs to be forgotten about a little bit, right? It is sunken into the value area for the week. For the week, I would watch 534. And then maybe it might resume higher. So I don't know yet, right? And again, a lot of times we don't know, and I'm not afraid to say that. But I know what I would be looking for here. And I would be either looking for Microsoft to resume marching higher. And that level for me is 434, where I would consider getting involved. I considered it today and I didn't do it. And then I would also consider if it moves down here, I would actually like it to get a little bit cheaper for me. So again, no rush. But it's also possible that this stock just goes sideways a bit after a big move. And this is a good comparison. And I think Jay Woods talked about this. Remember when NVIDIA was reporting back in here, you could not get the stock to go up, right? And it's not because it's not because NVIDIA was like, it made its top and that was it for NVIDIA. It's just the fact that it went up too much, right? And sometimes that'll happen where a name will go up at a huge amount. Remember, this is where NVIDIA just was, going back a couple of years ago in 2023, it was around $30. this is split adjusted. Um, and the issue is it ran went up like 4 times is as big as like the $30. It went all the way up to 120, 130, right? And stocks, just after they've had a monster move like that, they need to consolidate. I've seen that a lot, in my trading career. And if you're super focused, and if you're zoomed in like this, which I do because sometimes I'm a short term swing trader. I'd like to consider myself more of a midterm swing trader. But if the trade doesn't work, then I'm taking trades off faster than that. But you might have thought, oh my God, this is going sideways. The stock isn't going to go anywhere. And that's just, sometimes stocks will do that for months and then they'll break higher. Sometimes I've seen stocks do that for a couple of years where they go sideways and then they take the next leg higher. It's really trying on your patience. A couple of things that I was going to go over with you today. I thought just stocks were all over the place. There was some today that had some great moves. SYM was one of them today. Go back to, I'm on the daily chart. This is a name that I looked at last week. I unfortunately got stopped out of the trade just because my entry price wasn't great, and I just thought it might be breaking down here. So I kind of and the market was weak last week, so I decided so I didn't really get stopped out. I just kind of ditched it. But it did what I wanted to do. Sometimes I'm a few days early into a stock, and I decide to get out of it and it goes higher. This happened to me with ASTS too. I went over this in my P&L video that I sent to members over the weekend, but I was positioning in this ASTS in here, stopped out here and did not re-enter. And the stock made a nice move. This ASTS is trying to set up again. Let's see if it gets back above these short-term moving averages. But this is going to have earnings, as well as Rocket Lab is going to have to get through earnings. And I think it's kind of a bit nerve-wracking with these names that have already gone up decently. Rocket Labs is up from where it started this year. It's a $26 stock. It's like, it's doubled at one point this year. So again, these names have advanced quite a bit. Couple names too, like this is boring stuff. I apologize, but this is about trading. I got in 3 trades yesterday. CRDO, and immediately got positive information back from that name. And I took a couple targets in this because I know that we're in August and I'm really keeping trades on a short leash right now. So I took off the trade. Once it got back to my cost basis and went a little bit under my cost basis from yesterday, I got out of it. I think the trend is fine here. Maybe I'm being a little bit conservative, but again, I'm being really quick with trades that are giving back. I also gave back CLS today. Right, CLS, I took one profit target this morning, but that's another bearish engulfing candle for today. So again, maybe it needs to come down, and like if it fills this gap, that's where I think I would be a buyer in this, considering that we're in August seasonality. One name, couple, I mentioned BWXT, right? I would keep an eye on this name, right? This is a really nice gap. This is a name that, not for whatever reason, not a lot of people talk about this name, right? They love, for whatever reason, social media loves OKLO. I don't know why sometimes social media falls in love with some names and they don't fall in love with others. I've never been able to figure this out. It has nothing to do with performance. It's just people fall in love with some stocks and it catches on. OKLO had a great day today. That also closed at highs. Again, going to be kind of tough here because you're going to have earnings here. That's next week. But maybe it could run into the earnings report. That's kind of what that name SYM is doing as well. So that's it. I think right now what I'm trying to do is look for some names that might pull back a little bit. Joby is a name that had a really nice move, came in a little bit. Like that was a possible trade update. A few other names too. So again, you go through some names and some names acted really, really well today. Look at MP, which I'm in, closed at new highs today. So that's a nice move. Affirm is one name that acted really well yesterday, broke out. Look at the recovery from the lows today, going after that VPOC up there. I'll tell you one name that I don't understand. I'll have to dig into. Maybe I'll listen to their earnings report, their earnings conference call. But I thought Upstart had good numbers. I don't know why they sold off. The initial reaction was they traded all the way up to $92 and all the way back to 70 72. So I actually bought some shares of this after hours because it looked like they beat numbers handily. So I don't know why they're down. I guess I'm missing something there, but I'll figure that out once I hear the conference call. Another name that I'm watching after hours that dipped a little bit, again, just a little bit of a dip into earnings, was the Centrus Energy. Again, another uranium name that nobody seems to talk about. For they love OKLO, but they don't look at this one. But this one had really nice earnings. I didn't like the lower high here, but nice move on earnings. So that's it for now. Again, a lot of movers out there. Head on a swivel right now. Risk management for me is very, very should always be high up on the list of what you're doing, but especially with the weaker August